Welcome back, financial coach. This lesson is going to be all about demonstrating your expertise and coaching with confidence. Oh boy, this is a big one. And I'm so excited to dive into this because I think it is one of the challenges that a lot of coaches face for a very long time, actually. We can really be faced with a lot of self-doubt. And if we don't have a clear system that we ourselves are following, if we don't have something that we know is a way of getting our mind right before we go into each coaching session, if we don't have certain things that we know to be watching for and looking for, we can really get ourselves in our own heads. We can maybe get ourselves a little bit overwhelmed or distracted, and that really can impact the way that we are showing up for our clients. It impacts the way that they're viewing us and our own expertise on the subject. And we just simply do not feel confident. We don't feel like the leader going into a coaching session. And so this lesson, we're specifically talking about the very first coaching session that you are having with a client. So you have gotten their prep work like we talked about in the previous lesson. And now what do you do with it? We really want to know how to make the most of the prep work that we've received so that we can feel very, very confident going into this session, and we can demonstrate to our clients that we see them, we understand them, and we absolutely can help them. So we're going to talk first about some of the challenges that I see that many coaches face when they don't have a clear system for preparing themselves to feel confident going into this session. What I have heard from probably the hundreds of coaches now that I've talked to over the years is that they can really try to cram maybe a little too much into those first sessions. We will get back that prep work from a client and they'll share with us a lot of details sometimes, all of the things that they want to accomplish with their money, all of the different goals that they have. We'll look at their financial spreadsheet and we'll be able to see all of the different things that they could improve upon, the expenses they could cut, the way they could tackle their debt. We know they want to save for vacations or for retirement, and we really can want to tackle far too much for one initial session. And so this is really a very big challenge as a coach, is that we can sort of get in our own way and we can wind up really overwhelming ourselves and overwhelming the client. So many of these clients, like I said, they have a lot of challenges, a lot of problems, and we are trying to figure out, how do I give them solutions for all of it? Because of course, as a coach, we want to help them, right? We see these challenges and we know the solution to them, and we want nothing more than to really help these clients make massive progress. Because there is so much to cover, this oftentimes can plant seeds of doubt in the coach's mind, right? We start to think, oh my gosh, how am I going to deliver enough value? How am I going to give them all the information that they need? And during the session, how this gets translated is that we wind up giving way too much information. We like word vomit on the client, right? Where we're just trying to like tell them a little bit about this and a little bit about that. And it really can wind up being far too much. So what the result of all of this is that a few different things can happen. So one is that we might try to solve all of the problems that we see a client has. And in doing so, in giving like sort of anecdotal solutions to maybe a dozen different things, the client thinks, oh, it's just that simple. I don't really need any more. Thanks, you've solved everything. When in fact, usually these like one sentence solutions for things or very quick fixes, they actually aren't so easy in execution, right? There's usually some challenges and obstacles that the client will face. And if we act as though everything is very simple, and then the client says, oh, great, I think you've answered every single question I have. I think I don't need any more help. And then they go out after their session and they try to accomplish all of the things that you gave them, and they find that they can't, right? Because that is usually the reality, is that it's not quite so easy as we might paint the picture of during the session. And when they can't solve everything as easily as we've kind of demonstrated they should be able to, they wind up feeling like something is wrong with them. They wind up feeling like, oh, I'm a failure. I'm not good at money. I'm not smart enough. I can't figure this out. It was supposed to be so simple. They feel very discouraged in themselves, but it also plants seeds of doubt in how they view you, the coach, because they think, they told me this would work and it isn't working. So I wasted my money on that session, or this coach didn't really know what they were talking about because they told me it would be so simple and it's not, right? So we think that we're doing a great thing by solving everything, but if we're not careful, we actually set the client up for failure, and we set them up for believing that we don't actually know what we're talking about because we didn't really tell them that this was going to be a challenge, right? The other thing that happens is that the client may wind up feeling really overwhelmed when they get so much information all at one time, right? So this is the word vomit. When we give them so much information, we solve everything, we try to go into detail about a lot of things. And the client at the end of the session, you can almost see it when you've done it because their eyes are really big. They're sort of nodding, but they're kind of in a daze, like they're not super engaged in the conversation anymore. And when you ask them how they're feeling, they'll say things like, I'm kind of overwhelmed. They might say that, or they'll be like, I feel like I have a lot to do, or I'm going to need some time to really think through this. These are all the things that you hear from an overwhelmed mind. And here's the thing. A confused mind does not make decisions. So if you go from that moment and start talking about what more coaching will look like, their brain is already so full and so confused and so overwhelmed and has this giant list of things to digest. They can't possibly engage in that conversation at that point. They can't possibly think beyond what they've been given because it seems so daunting. And they're thinking, I can't sign up for this every week. Oh my gosh, what if they give me this amount of work? I could never possibly do this, right? So it winds up feeling so big and scary and overwhelming to them. And they are paralyzed around making decisions in that moment, but they also are thinking, I don't know that I want to sign up for more of this. This seems hard. And what we want is that coaching seems easy, right? We want to show the client how we are going to make this process so easy for them, that it is so possible for them to make the progress that they want and to get the results that they want through working together. All right. Another thing that happens when we talk too much, tackle too many things, try to solve all the problems, sometimes we can look a little bit scattered, right? We try to cram too much in that we can't really go deep enough on any one thing. Or if we try to go too deep, then it winds up that we're going all over the place, or we are giving the client way too much that they just can't think straight anymore. So again, we don't seem as focused, we don't seem as organized, we don't seem as strategic because we're cramming so much in, and it causes doubt in the client's mind. So remember, we're trying to demonstrate expertise, and an expert is not just throwing spaghetti at the walls. We're saying this is the biggest boulder that you need to tackle. And when that one is solved, other things are going to start to be easier and we can move on to the next steps, right? So that is what an expert does, is identifies the most important things. And that's what we're going to talk about in a little bit. The other thing that happens, like I said earlier, is that when we give so many solutions or we solve every single problem, we really are not setting clear expectations for the client. So we aren't telling them those things that show that we are an expert by saying, during today's session, I see that what you really want is to solve X, Y, and Z. And we're not telling them, I feel absolutely confident that we're going to be able to answer this question that you have today. You're going to know exactly what to do with this by the time that we're done. But I want to be honest with you that this other one is a much bigger and complex question, and it is going to take time to solve that. This is likely something that is 6 months down the road, if that's the case, right? You want to be honest with them. You want to set clear expectations around what the client wants so that they can understand that you know the timeline. You can see how long some of these things take, that you know that in 1 week, you're not going to have all of your debt paid off and a clear spending plan in place and all of your new bank accounts opened and be fully maxing out all of your retirement accounts. Like, it's just not going to work like that. So you need to be very clear in setting those expectations right on the front end and telling them, this is what we're going to be able to solve. This is the thing that we're likely not going to be able to get all the answers to right now, because we need some of these other things done first. And we need to set that very clear expectation and not try to solve everything. The other thing that kind of goes along with that, and I've already mentioned, but I just want to reiterate, is that when we're trying to solve everything, we truly are not preparing the client for what is to come. We're not preparing them for how much work is ahead of them or the challenges that they are likely to face. So we almost can like minimize the challenge or the work that they're going to have to put in if we make it all seem so easy to solve, or we can do everything, or here's all the answers. Sometimes we feel, and this is definitely something I would say a lot of newer coaches have this thought or this idea of like, the client is asking me how to do this better, and I need to give them answers, right? So I need to know all the answers. I need to have all of the solutions. This is how I show up as credible. This is how I show up as if I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to build their trust. And it usually actually has the opposite impact, right? Like I said earlier, if we minimize things, if we don't tell them that it's going to be a challenge, and then they have those challenges, because they will, that is just the reality, is that it's never just like one session and everything is solved and it's all so easy. They know just what to do. Like, they're going to have challenges. But when we can talk to them about that, when we know, I want to be honest about what you're about to face. I want to be honest about what some of the challenges are that you're likely going to experience over the coming weeks. And we can describe that for them. And they know themselves. They know what they've had challenges with in the past. And you know too, because you've gotten their prep work. They know that they've tried all the things before and it wasn't all that easy, or that they've fallen off track, or they've gotten distracted, or big whammies have happened in their life and it derailed things, or that they've fallen prey to temptations, or that their family sways them to make decisions that aren't in their best interest, any number of things. And when you can call those things out with kindness, right? We're not like throwing things in their face, but we're letting them acknowledge what some of those challenges are. And we're pointing out the things that we know are obstacles for people. That is what demonstrates our expertise, not us giving them every solution on session number one. Okay. The ultimate goal here is that we want to develop your skill in demonstrating your expertise and build your confidence in yourself, right? And for the client to have confidence in you going into your coaching session. So over the years, I've definitely created some systems that help to simplify this so that you can walk into your first coaching session with any client really feeling confident, knowing that you're not going to overwhelm the client or yourself, and that you're focused on the most important and impactful things first, and that you're clearly communicating to the client in a way that they understand how important taking these steps will be in their financial life. So the prep work that we talked about in the previous video really is going to help you with all of this. Okay, so we're going to sort of talk through some of the things that I want you to be paying attention to with the prep work so that you can be very prepared going into that first session, so that you are showing up really confident, demonstrating your expertise, and you feel so crystal clear and ready to go on what you want to tackle with this client. So the questionnaire, I would say, is one of the most telling things when you are preparing for a coaching session. So you have put together this questionnaire. We've got the example in the previous lesson. So tweak it, make it your own, add any other questions or details that you think you want to know. But this really is going to give you a lot of information about the client that you are going to be meeting with. So of course, on the surface level, you're getting things like their demographic, you know, what is their age and their name? Where do they live? Are they married? Do they have children? What's their occupation? You are going to be gathering information about their goals or their challenges. And you might learn some surface level things that tell you like, oh, okay, this client has a lot of debt, or this client is self-employed, this client has kids, this client wants to save for retirement. And all of these things are necessary, yes, to help you get focused, but this is actually not the part of the questionnaire that is the most important. So I would say